Hi, everyone, and welcome to the WP Minute. I'm Eric Karkovac. Today's episode features a segment from part one of my interview with A List Apart co-founder Jeffrey Zeldman. Here, Jeffrey tells us about the fight to convince browser makers to support web standards. Now, you can check out the entire interview over on our WP Minute Plus channel. Visit thewpminute.com for all the details. And so, how did you start getting involved in web standards? Like, what drove you to that decision? Say that this isn't working. We're building stuff that is too proprietary, maybe too too buggy.
Netscape 4 and IE4 had come out. IE3 had come out with the first support for CSS, and even though it was limited and not entirely correct per the specification, which, to be fair to Microsoft, when the people made the specification, they didn't have any way of testing it. And they weren't thinking like designers. They were thinking like scientists. So some of the defaults actually didn't make sense, and whether padding got added or not and all that stuff. But so we had these 4 browsers, and people were making 4 versions of their website. You couldn't even say just optimized for IE because which one? Or just optimized for Netscape because which one? The market was about, well, Netscape had dominated, but now it was about 50-50. And people who were doing this work were like, I make so much money by knowing the 4 different ways to make something. And I was on we had a bunch of mailing lists and news groups back then. I'm sure you participated in that too.
Oh, yes.
And I was in one, I don't remember the name of the news group, but George Olson and Glenn Davis were also in that group. Stephen Champion was in that group. And we started talking about how frustrating it was to have 4 different, models, none of which were permanent. And we just, in that newsletter or in that series of mails, which I don't have anymore because I don't have Eudora anymore, I used to download my mail, not leave it in the cloud because there wasn't a cloud. Eudora was awesome. It was a great tool, but it was for System 7. I was still using System 7 back then, but anyway, I wish I still had it. I wish it wasn't in a landfill or on a jazz drive somewhere in a storage unit in Sheboygan or wherever this stuff ended up. I wish, because for historical reasons, it would be interesting to see who contributed the different ideas. But
Yeah.
I think Glenn, Web Standards Project was one of the names we kicked around for, like, let's make a group and just try something. I think Glenn Davis talked about the WASP because it was like, well, WSP could be WASP, and WASPs are small little annoying bugs, but if enough of them are stinging you, you're going to feel it. And that's where we are as developers. We're going up against 2 huge companies, Microsoft and Netscape. They're huge, and we're nothing. What we represent, if we position the message right, we represent hundreds of thousands of developers who are frustrated right now and designers who are frustrated right now. So that gives us power. It's like democracy, It's one senator, but theoretically they represent, many constituents. We're not going to go into whether that is working at the moment or not. We're just going to go with that's how things seem to be then. So we called it WASP, and I sort of took over a lot of the writing, and I designed the website. And I made it orange because I thought WASPs were orange. I'm a city boy. I was surprised when I actually made the WASP logo that WASPs really don't look like bugs in cartoons. They really look more like butterflies.
Yeah.
Right? But anyway, we did another thing that was effective, which is, in advertising, there used to be a thing called a roadblock, Eric. And a roadblock was where, well, in America, there were 3 networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC. You'd buy a commercial on all 3 networks, and you'd tell them, I want this to run in the first commercial break of the 6 o'clock news, let's say. There were 3 news networks. Everybody watched one of them. And in advertising, if your commercial was playing on CBS and you're like, I don't want to see a commercial, you'd switch to NBC, same commercial. You'd switch to ABC, same commercial. So you'd see the message. It's kind of a gross thing. It can't be done anymore because we no longer have a not a duopoly, but a triopoly, I guess. We no longer have three big networks that everybody
Yeah, yeah.
watches. So, but we used that idea. I had started a list apart with a colleague from that newsletter. Um, Jeff Bean was working at Hotwired. Glenn Davis was running Cool Site of the Day, or maybe it was Project Cool back then. He might have already left Cool Site of the Day. Anyway, he was running either that first site that said, "Hey, there's cool stuff to look at on the web. Here's a site we like today," or his second one, which he might have started to get out of a maybe. I think he started the first one as an employee, and they were like trying to take editorial control away from him, or they weren't. He was, he realized that there was more that he could do if he did it independently, so he did. Anyway, and Steve Champion's Web Design L mailing list had like 2,000 developers on it, but they were like the smartest developers on the web at that time. Anyway, we had a bunch of us who were in this informal group. We all published our announcement on the same day, our demand that, we said standards exist for a reason.